one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, board, we do need to add something to our agenda before we go any further. We need to have a closed session before our public hearing. So we are going to, the commissioners will go downstairs. You can stay exactly where you are for this closed session. We'll be back shortly. But I will need a motion, and I'll go ahead and make that motion to go into closed session. This will be closed session 143-318, period 11, period parentheses A3, to consult with an attorney or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged. And I'll leave a second for that.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor with aye? Aye. Any opposed? We now will go into closed session. if there is no objection, I will call a public hearing for redrawing Castle County electoral district lines. Declare it open, and we will at this time turn it over to our county manager for presentation, and we will take any public comments on this issue. County manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, the first thing I have is a short presentation about redistricting and the redistricting process. Bear with me for just a minute. Okay. So redistricting, the legal considerations. What is redistricting? It's the process of redrawing district boundaries every 10 years following the decennial United States Census, done to ensure that voting power and representation are distributed equally based on population. Congressional and legislative redistricting performed by the General Assembly. County, municipal, school board redistricting performed by General Assembly or the governing board, or a process prescribed in court order, a consent decree in some cases. And as those of you that are on the board understand, we in Castle County have a consent decree that we operate under that was entered into in 1989 by the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Education, and the Board of Elections. So let's talk about the process that we go through. So the process the Board of Commissioners has went through for redrawing the electoral districts is, number one, it's required by the state of North Carolina following a decennial census for those counties that operate with electoral districts, meaning the commissioner for that district has a requirement to live in those districts. We contracted with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council to redraw Castle County's electoral districts. PTRC extrapolated the data from the 2020 census, decennial census, and redrew Castle County electoral district lines, and they were presented to the Board of Commissioners as proposed districts. The Castle County Board of Commissioners reviewed the newly drawn maps and determined they had additional priorities that were not met with the newly drawn version. The county manager worked with PTRC and staff to revisit the proposed district map. Determination was that to meet the priorities of the board, the newly drawn districts would have to substantially change. After the substantial changes were made, the county manager presented the altered map to the Board of Commissioners in a special meeting. After review of the maps, I received several comments from commissioners and the public, which necessitated several changes to the districts. The result is version 6, V6, that you will review today. Priorities. So I want to take a minute to go over the priorities the Board of Commissioners laid out for redrawing the electoral districts. Number one, keep all sitting commissioners serving in a district role currently in a new redrawn district. This forces districts 1, 2, and 4 to commingle on in the western part of the county. One district must move north, one district must move south, and one must extend westward. Keep populations in each district as even as possible in each district. This is not only a board priority, this is also a legal requirement. Current electoral districts are 16% out of balance between the most populated district and the least populated district. This indicates an almost 7% population shift. To get within 2%, 5% is the target of population in electoral districts. We must follow more than just roads. Bodies of water, township lines, and municipal lines must be used to separate the districts. So the third priority was to maintain 2 minority-majority districts in Caswell. This comes from the 1989 consent decree. The minority population has declined in Caswell by 506 residents. The African-American population has declined by 1,187 residents. Other minority populations have increased by 681 residents, which leaves us with a deficit of 506 in our minority population category. This, among other things, has caused a population shift. Both districts must share census tracts in Yanceyville to maintain the minority-majority districts. And here I list minority populations by township. I'll give you a minute to look at those populations. So the legal considerations that we look at are compactness, the districts being contiguous, meaning you don't have a spot district. It preserves communities of interest, one person, one vote, the consent decree, and it minimizes split precincts. PTRC proposed districts meet the legal requirements for redistricting, but not the priorities of the Board of Commissioners. Other versions meet the priorities of the Board of Commissioners and the consent decree, but they may contain deficiencies in one area or the other. So I wanted to take just a minute to show you what our electoral districts look like at this point in time. These were drawn in 2010, and you can see that many of the districts are elongated and they have a funny shape to them. Are there any questions about our current electoral districts? Let me show you the statistics.
Could you go back to that number? And the reason for that odd shape was to achieve minority-majority aspect of that district. Is that correct?
I cannot answer that definitively because I was not here in 2010. I would suspect that was one priority that was used. But yes, that's very possible.
It wasn't because somebody liked Picasso.
That's right. That's correct. So the current proposed version that you have in front of you today that you will consider today, I want to point out a couple things. Number one, it is 1.87% out of balance from the most populated district to the least populated district. If you go down and look at the PTRC version, the PTRC version is 2.84% out of balance between the most populated district and the least populated district. The current districts that were drawn in 2010 are 8.77% out of balance. When they were drawn, they were 8.77% out of balance. The districts as presented today, are much closer in population than the current districts. And the population shifts over the last 10 years have resulted in a 16% difference from the most to the least populated districts for our current Board of Commissioners electoral districts. So currently the districts as they are, they're 16% out of balance. Do you have any questions about the statistics?
Is that really B3 or is that not B6?
It should be B6. This is the third version you're actually considering. Also,
That is in fact B6.
that's correct. So I also want to point out that there are true minority majority districts, that districts 3 and districts 4 both have at least 52% minority majority. So to give you a graphic illustration of why the districts look like they do, I do want to point out that one of the factors, not the predominant factor, but one of the factors that was used was the 1989 consent decree and the minority majority districts. So I want to show you this graphic illustration of where minority majority census tracts are located within the county. You can see that throughout the county they are becoming more evenly distributed throughout the county with those census tracts that contain a minority majority. There are still heavy populations in this area and this area of census tracts that contain minority majorities. This is the map that you're considering today for the public hearing. The board advised myself and the clerk to put this map on the county website and have this considered for the public hearing. So you can see this version of the electoral districts is not unlike our previous version in that there are some electoral districts that are elongated and have irregular shapes. But to achieve the priorities of the board, that was one of the things that we had to do. I also want to point out that Caswell has a prison work farm and a prison. Those two facilities house together approximately 1,100 inmates or residents, about which 800 are minority. So I think that's important to note when going through this process that those two facilities are included in the decennial census. So having said that, I just want to make a couple more comments. The legal requirements for redistricting are compactness, one person, one vote. The districts are contiguous. The consent decree, it preserves communities of interest. It minimizes split precincts. And I want to go over the Board of Commissioners' priorities. Each seating commissioner representing a district should remain in a district apart from other commissioners representing a district, equal populations in districts, and abiding by the consent decree and maintaining 2 minority-majority electoral districts. So I'm happy to answer any questions before we move into the public hearing.
Did you say that the prison farm and the prison
The work farm and the prison
are not in the same district in the version 6 now?
That's correct. They're not
separated to deal with the issue of
That's correct.
non-representation.
That's correct.
Basically.
Now, we're gonna have public comments, for this, and you didn't have to sign up for that because we didn't have the sheet. Anything further from the board before I pass the public comments? At this time, if there's anyone who would like to speak concerning the redrawing of Castle County's electoral district lines, you can come forward. Remember to state your name, address, please.
I'm Rebecca Page. I live at 820 Page Road in Mansfield. And this is probably a silly question, but prisoners can't vote. Is that correct? That they do not vote? That's one of the things you lose when you go to prison? And so did I understand you correctly to say that the populations of the prisons have been included as you decide where these lines are drawn for voting?
They are included in the numbers for the decennial census, which are used to redraw electoral districts.
Does that make sense since they are not voters?
I honestly can't answer what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Anyway, that's my question.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak on this issue? If
When you approach, please state your name and address.
Leslie Zimmerman, 732 Solomon, Leesburg. Can you put the picture of this, of the map up again?
I can.
I was listening to NPR on my way here this morning, and Rusty Jacobs was talking about this. And one of the things he said is, can I approach the map? So I was listening to NPR this morning, and Rusty Jacobs was talking about this. And this is not allowed.
If you're going to speak, take the microphone with you.
Or just the blue line, the nice S. It might work out numerically, but it's, swirly lines aren't allowed. They're supposed to be as square as possible, or as rectangular as possible. I mean, that just looks like somebody's messing with us. So, I know, but it's still, it just doesn't seem normal.
anyone else? If not, at this time, without any objection, we will declare this public hearing will be closed after tomorrow at 10 o'clock to allow for public comments. Objection, we'll declare closed at this time. At this time, we will have our regular public comments section. Rebecca Page.
And I'm still Rebecca Page, and I still live at Page Road, Mansfield. Thank you for considering the redesign of the courthouse square and the relocation of the Confederate monument. As a Castle native, a current resident, and a great-granddaughter of a Castle native who fought in the Civil War, I believe I have skin in the game as it relates to the Confederate monument. My great-grandfather, James Bentley Page, returned home from the war so beaten by harsh conditions that he never recovered. He wasn't killed in the war, but it did take his life. As I've grown to understand the motives of the Civil War, the horrors of slavery, and the ripple effects that people of color continue to experience, I realize the Confederate monument never deserved its esteemed position in the center of the county, center of the county seat, high on a pedestal, in the center of the courthouse square, as if memorializing the county's and its citizens' proudest and defining moment. It simply is not that, and never was. I do believe the monument should be relocated, not stored and forgotten, to a less distinguished location, perhaps behind the History Museum with the World War II Memorial, or in the Arboretum, or private property, or another location, and its complete and historical context explained. It should be respectful, with interpretive material representing all sides, allowing the observer to come to their own conclusions. This would not be disrespectful to my great-grandfather, nor an attempt to forget history, but rather an opportunity to tell the full truth. Acknowledging our less than noble and atrocious actions of the past, and committing to learn from them and not repeat them would be the highest honor we could pay our civil debt. If we could allow this process of redesigning the square to broker reconciliation, what a proud moment and glorious legacy that would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Kent Williamson.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kent Williamson. I live at 461 Graves Road. Commissioners, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for moving Castle County forward, especially in the education field. Especially in the education field, by partnering Yancey having the high-tech school that you have fulfilled in that. And second of all, to support higher education through Piedmont Community College, which will help the county as a whole. I was on the board earlier in 2020, well, late 2020, and the reconditioning of the monument, relocating the monuments, and it was on the board at that time. And to me, we have spent a year trying to put this to rest, and I think that it should be moved on by the commissioners to go ahead and relocate and fix our square so that it is inviting to our business district. We did a wonderful job of creating a business district, but at the same time, you turn right around and you have a monument set up there that is a sign of hatred. And if anybody knows the reason for the Civil War, then they would look at that monument and say, we don't need it up there for that reason. But remember, as an oath that you have taken to be a commissioner, that you, your oath said that you would support the laws of the United States, not the laws of Confederacy. So just remember that when you're making your decision, and remember the people that you're supporting in trying to make Castle County a better county. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Elmore is going to speak on the importance of flu shots.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Danielle Elmore. I work with the Castle County Health Department, and I've been asked to speak on the flu. What is the flu? Influenza is a serious disease that at times can lead to death. It is very contagious and it spreads in the U.S. starting in the fall through the spring. Unlike the cold, flu symptoms start suddenly. They appear 1 to 4 days after a person has been exposed to the flu. A person is contagious with the flu 1 day before symptoms start, up to 5 to 7 days after they get sick. The only treatment for the flu is antiviral drugs. You can take ibuprofen and acetaminophen to increase your comfort, but it's nothing you can take to actually get rid of the flu. The people that are at the highest risk are your young children and older adults, and the people with weaker immune systems. They will become sicker. What is the best way to prevent the flu? The best way to prevent the flu is to get your flu vaccine. Everyone 6 months of age or older should get the flu vaccine every year. The flu vaccine will not cause you to get the flu. When should you get your flu vaccine? Every year, you should get it as soon as possible. It takes approximately 2 weeks to build a fully effective immunity against the flu, which means before the flu season starts is when you want to get it. Flu season doesn't peak until February or May, but you can get your flu vaccine at any time. Castle County Health Department offers flu vaccines. You can either make an appointment or walk in at any time. Also, you can see your primary care provider to receive your flu vaccine or go to a pharmacy. Castle County Health Department is offering flu vaccines to the commissioners and the public today at recess. I'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernestine Hammond.
Good morning. My name is Ernestine Hammond, and I live everywhere I go. My house is on 579 Hudson Road, Milton, North Carolina. Commissioners, this morning I want to talk to you about several things. First of all, we are here as the concerned citizens to ask you to relocate that Confederate monument and redesign the town square. This piece of artwork, it does not represent the values of this county nor the values of all of the citizens. You are our elected officials, and you represent all of its citizens. You have the obligation to represent us in a way that we would be proud of. And so, someone asked the question, where are we going to get this money to relocate and redesign? Well, sir, it seems to me that money is not a problem. We spent $5,000 on a survey that seems to hold very little value. The proposed or the mentioned site to relocate the monument from the front of the courthouse to the left side of the courthouse was not an option on the survey. One other thing, as taxpayers, we do not want our tax dollars to go toward upkeeping this Confederate monument that represents so much hatred and racism. Someone asked the question, where are we going to get this money? Well, sir, our taxes went up substantially this year. I thought about it last night for a while, and I feel like we are here today off of the neck of George Floyd. When George Floyd died, there were a number of Confederate monuments that began to tumble down because of its negativity and its hatred that it holds. And I'm sure all of you are aware of this. It is very disheartening to be in a county where some of our elected officials seem to think that this symbol is worth holding on to, and you are willing to turn the other way. So we're asking you today to live up to this county motto and preserve the past and embrace the future. We will continue to march on until victory is won. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicky Foster.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Vicky Foster. The address is 9532 East Lane, Northwest Concord, North Carolina. I am here today because I am a long-term council resident. We also still have property here. I have a home here, and half of Old County Home Road is my family. I did not plan to speak today. I'm not normally in town. I'm here on family business, but this is something that is dear to my heart. I'm actually surprised, honestly, that we're still talking about this. The fact that the center of this town, which is the heart of this town, represents anything that offends the citizens of this county is amazing to me that we don't care enough about to make sure that it is removed. Where it goes is really not my concern. The fact is, we should care enough about the citizens and all citizens. If that monument offended the other side of this town, I would be standing here the same way. Because this is not about race. It is about what is offensive to the people that are supposed to be included in this county. That center should be the heart of this town, and it is the heart of this town. Whether it is a park, but it should be a place that all people feel welcome. We all know what the Confederacy stands for. We don't have to go back through history. And while history is history, and I support history, there are people that died in the Confederacy, and I understand that. The fact that this county owns that statue and don't want to do anything with it is amazing to me. Because you are elected officials. You are here to represent all people in this county. And what that means is that you consider how people feel about what they have to walk by every day that doesn't represent them and represents some very bad things. And we all know that. I'm not going to go into a history lesson. What I expect is for the people of this town to do better. Because when you know better, you do better. This is not about black against white. This is about right against wrong. This is about making people feel inclusive. I didn't come here with a speech. I came here with a heart. And I came here to say, my expectation, if it's about money, I'll go on record today. I pledge $2,500 towards the removal of this. I don't care. I'm not asking for an African-American statue. It's not about that. It's about being fair, honest, and inclusive of our citizens. You elected officials, I expect you to do better.
I can't make out, I think is this Kalane? I'll move to the next one and then I'll come back and see if we can figure it out. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Leslie Zimmerman.
Good morning, I'm Leslie Zimmerman. I live at 733 Solomon Road in Leesburg. Everything is fishy in Caswell County. You know when you walk up to a fish fry and it just doesn't smell right? There's only one thing that can outsmell the stench of raw fish, and that is the smell of cooked fish that has gone bad. It can cause a massive odor problem. The longer you keep fish brown, the more it'll make you hold your nose when you cook it. Well, it certainly seems that you have kept the planning board members that have repeat terms way too long. Actually, it's obvious that many of them feel this way, since they are never prepared, never informed, hardly ever attend meetings. As you know, making sound decisions regarding land use, zoning, and project appropriateness is not a game. It requires responsible and reliable elected and appointed representatives of the Caswell community. It is clear that some of the planning board members are incapable of acting in the best interest of Caswell County. The dysfunction of the planning board no longer lies with the planning board. It has now become Board of Commissioners dysfunction. It is time for you to clean up this mess. Throw them out.
Was there another person that signed up, Kalane or Kalina? No. Okay. Call our public comment section closed at this time. Recognitions. To start us off today, I want to recognize the Barney High School ladies volleyball team. They are one win away from playing for a state title. They play tomorrow night, I believe. If they win that, they will be playing for the state title, so we'd like to congratulate them for a job well done this year. Any other recognitions, board members have?
Yeah, I'd just like to, and I believe it's the Chamber of Commerce that sponsored and set up, in conjunction with the town, the candy trail for Halloween. To me, it was a resounding success. It was very enjoyable to watch all these children dressed up like everything from death to a fairy or a whale or a shark. It was just wonderful to see all the people out roaming around, and we ran out of candy where we were. There were so many people. It was a very fun, encouraging event.
Anyone else?
I just want to echo what Commissioner Owen and Commissioner Stryker said. Candy Trail was an excellent idea, and I participate in that as well, but next year. And as far as volleyball, man, those girls are really doing good. Looking forward to them winning the state championship.
Thank you. All right, this time we are going to recess for anyone who would like to take.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could just make one comment before we go any further. I'd like to recognize the staff of the library. They put the candy trail together and organized it and distributed maps. Most of the organization and work was done by the Gunnersville Public Library and their staff. I'd just like to recognize them while we're at it.
Thank you.
I said correctly.
Okay, at this time we're going to take a recess for anyone who would like to have a flu shot. I guess if you'll gather on this side over here, you'll probably have some paperwork or something to fill out. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will continue with our agenda. Number 6, approval of agenda. We have a motion and a second. Gentlemen, since this is remote, we do need to do this through roll call voting, so, Commissioner Carter?
Mr. Chairman, are we going to leave the redesign of the town square?
Exactly, I'm sorry, thank you. Commissioner Hall he hasn't talked with me, I'm not exactly sure what all that conversation was gonna be, so we're just gonna remove that. I don't know all that it included. We're just gonna remove that since it was his.
Have we heard why he's not here?
I've not had any contact.
I just wondered if we should be concerned or something.
So we will remove item number 8, Commissioner Hall not being here.
Mr. Chairman, the ethics policy was also, Commissioner Hall was also very involved in the construction of the ethics policy. I don't know if the board wants to leave that
Or is it okay to remove number 8, gentlemen? We really don't know what discussion. Okay, how about number 9, the ethics? Do we want to remove that one as well or not? Up to the board.
How long is that?
I think the policy's 3 pages. There's not a huge discussion surrounding the ethics policy. I mean, it's simply an ethics policy that would be for the Board of Commissioners, county employees, and for boards and commissions.
We ought to remove it, I'm sorry. If he's not here, we ought to.
Okay, is that okay? All right, so number 9, so you don't even have left the open resolution. So your motion still stands, Commissioner Jeffries, to approve that it's amended. And did I get a second from Commissioner McVeigh? So let's do roll call voting. Commissioner Carter? Aye. Sorry, I caught you. Commissioner Dickerson? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? Commissioner Ostriker? Commissioner Owen? Aye. All right, we will go to number 10, County Manager.
Commissioners, at your last board meeting, you asked us to move forward with the opioid litigation memorandum of agreement between the state of North Carolina and Capital County. As part of that, we included the resolution in your agenda packet. We would just ask that you would approve the resolution, and the resolution would serve as the board's action on moving forward with the opioid litigation.
Board have any questions? This is what we discussed in the last meeting. No questions or discussion. I need to know what the pleasure of the board is. I will make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Second.
And we have a second. Questions, comments? Roll call voting. Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Dickerson? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? Commissioner Ostriker?
No.
And Commissioner Owen? Resolution passes. County Manager. At this time, we will go into County Manager updates.
Yes, Commissioners, I have 2 updates for you. I want to inform the board that today is the official closing date for the operations of home health. We will officially close on that today. We expect $675,000 deposit for the sale of the home health operation to be deposited within 3 business days into our account. Much of which is discussed with the board before, should be allocated to the home health fund balance. I do want to let the board know that we're going to move forward as soon as the closing occurs with the payout for those employees that were dedicated enough to the county to stay with the county throughout the process instead of moving on, as we discussed in the early parts of the process. I also want to let the board know that the Department of Transportation has verbally accepted the plat for Shadow Ridge Road. We expect the final plat to be completed today, reviewed by the planning department, and filed with the Register of Deeds later on this week. And after that occurs, we'll move forward with the process for the special assessment on Shadow Ridge Road.
Any questions? I apologize, I did skip over one item that we need to go back and approve, and that is the approval of the consent agenda. If there are no corrections to the October 18, 2021 regular meeting minutes, the October 21st, 2021 redistricting meeting minutes, if there are no corrections to that, those minutes will stand approved, Madam Clerk. I apologize for that. Okay, Commissioner comments?
You're talking about redesigning the square, I still hadn't heard. Talking about redesigning the square, I still hadn't heard what it was gonna cost yet.
Those figures will be the next meeting. We instructed our county manager to have those numbers for our next meeting.
And I'll have a response to that. I'll have a response to the next one.
Yeah, I have a few comments. On the last 26th of October, there was the regularly scheduled planning board meeting, and they were to sit as a quasi-judicial body on the watershed review. There were at least 40 people, maybe 60 if there were additional people in the library that attended. There was a phalanx of lawyers here that were racking up very expensive costs per minute. And waiting for the planning board to review their comments. The planning board did not field a quorum and had to suspend the meeting. To me, this is extremely disrespectful to people out there, to the citizens of this county. It represents a pattern of avoidance by the planning board. In April, they failed to make a comment that they were directed to on a citizen petition for rezoning. When they were directed to make a comment on consistency with the proposed zoning ordinance, they failed to make a comment to the board as directed. And at the meeting last Tuesday, they failed to even convene once again to do their duties. I have a mind to make a motion regarding this, but I'll wait until we talk to the chairman about this. But I did instruct the chairman, Russell Johnson, that as the Board of Commissioners representative, I was extremely displeased with his ability to call a quorum together, and extremely displeased with the members that did not show the courtesy to show up. And I'm repeating that again, and I'm hopeful that this board will agree with me on that. I would also like to read a public comment letter that was not read. This was from Gay Pleasant, fairly short. It says, "Dear Commissioner, Please see to it in fact in the future, the Caswell County Planning Board is composed of members who understand the task at hand and the responsibilities that accompany a seat on that board. There are many thoughtful, respectful community members who can serve our county in this position, but it is up to you to select them. You also received another letter that I don't have right in front of me, but everybody received a copy of it. I think we need to take these letters and thoughts to heart and do something about this. Thank you.
Commissioner Day, Commissioner Jeffers?
Yeah, I don't have much about it, just an axe count now. You might can help me down on Jack Morris Road. It's not still the same. And, you know, I've been bringing stuff from one time to one. Now, we serve the South Tuesday, yeah, or something.
Yes, we have started the process on Jack Corner Road. Many times, if the owner of the property does not immediately respond to the notice given by the planning department, this can take months. And it literally can take months. So it's a process that we have to work through, but we have taken the initial steps required to start having that cleaned up. This situation is a little bit different than maybe situations we dealt with in the past, because the owner of the property is not the resident of the property. So there's some mitigating circumstances in this situation, and we're working through those, but we have taken the initial steps to work through.
So you don't have no idea what time, I mean, how long it will take for the people in their neighborhood want to know something like that, you know, keep getting called. Some stop about, you know, when they're gonna do it, you know.
Well, so we can require that the resident or the property owner clean up their property. What we cannot require is that they actually, we can require them to do it, but we cannot physically make them clean up the property. We can issue summons, we can take them to court, we can do things like that, but here again, that's a long process. And to know exactly how long that'll take, I can't tell you. I can tell you that we've started working through the process, and that's all we do at this point.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Davis?
We hear a whole lot about the planning board, a lot of complaints about issues surrounding that. And we can each reach out and talk to the members of that board individually, but I propose that we invite the chairman and other members here so we can hear what they have to say about the issues that have been brought up. I think it'd be very informative if we get both sides of the story before we continue any further.
Gentlemen, I have to back up again. I failed to ask this question regarding the redrawing of Caswell County's electoral district lines after our public hearing.
Repeat that.
I failed to ask the board's pleasure regarding the redistricting of Caswell County, redrawing Caswell County electoral district lines after the public hearing. I failed to get your insight on that afterwards, so I apologize again for that. But if we do not do anything today, we will need to have a special meeting this week. Would you not agree, County Manager?
Absolutely.
By Thursday?
It's imperative that it can move forward with this as quickly as possible. I'm happy to do whatever the board asks me to do. But yes, we need to move forward quickly.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the latest version of the map, none other than county manager.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. to adopt that map that we approved. Second.
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay, Commissioner Jeffries seconds that motion. Any other questions or comments? This time we'll have roll call voting. Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Dickerson?
No.
Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? Commissioner Ostriker? Commissioner Owen? Aye. Very well. I apologize for not taking care of that. I don't remember the manager, but with all the changes that we got. All right, announcements and upcoming events. November the 11th, Veterans Day will be observed. November 15th is our next regular scheduled meeting at 6:30. November 25th and 26th, of course, will be Thanksgiving holidays.
Mr. Chairman, if we could just add November 7th, the open house at Bartley Yancey High School to the list.
And it's, I assume that is for the public, for anyone, or this open house?
I believe so.
Okay, I just wasn't real sure about that. If you can't make it on November the 7th, they say you can call and they'll try to set up an individual tour for you. All right, at this time, I need a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to go into closed session, consult with attorney employed or retained by the public body over the preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body with this privilege, hereby acknowledged NCPS 143-318, A3, and citizen qualification, complex character, or position of each employment of an individual, hereby acknowledged NCPS 143-318.
Thank you. We need a second. We have a second. All those in favor with aye? Opposed? We now sit in closed session.
Mr. Chairman, if you could just run down that roll call voting.
I know you get tired of telling me that. I apologize. Okay, roll call voting for going into closed session. Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Dickinson? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? Commissioner Ostriker? Commissioner Owen, aye. Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Okay, commissioners, are we recording, Ashley?
You're recording, you just have to unmute.
Okay.
Okay, we now sit back in open session. Anything further for the board today? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn? And a second. All those in favor by roll call voting, Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Dickinson? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Ostriker? Commissioner Owen, aye. We now sit adjourned. Thank you.